Whoa, I'm scared. I'm scared. Where's Jill?
I woke up like this.
You did? Oh my God. You're too
Something
much,
happened
girlfriend.
overnight. I don't know.
That is amazing.
What is
Good
today?
morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and you are tuned in to the Today Show here on the Disability Channel. And I thought I'd use our home TV background today because I keep forgetting that our episodes, two of them a week, get shipped down to the United States and to your home TV, and it just increased our viewership tremendously. So, welcome to Thursday. And on Thursday, we feature specialized communities. And of course, when Jill's here, it's veterans. And
Hmm.
what are they doing now? And where have they been? And you're amazing, Jill, at getting some wonderful people on the show for us. And thank you very much for that. So,
Well,
over to you for Halloween greetings.
yeah. Well, today we have the host of the Hard to Kill podcast because we're looking at zombies today. So we have a great guest today. He's a veteran and an advocate and an entrepreneur, and his name is Dave Morrill. And it's wonderful to have him here today. I'm really excited.
All right. So, I'm going to give you the lead on this one, and we'll just welcome Dave to the stage. Good morning, Dave.
Morning. How's everybody?
We're doing great. Thank you. You're in Montreal, Dave. Jill is in Edmonton and Alberta, and I'm in Drayton Valley, Alberta. So we're across the board this morning. And Montreal, one of my favorite cities in the country. It is my favorite city in the country. And my family, my dad moved to Quebec when I was a child, and we lived in Quebec for about 8 years from Nova Scotia. So always fond memories of our time there. So welcome to the show.
Right on. Merci.
Wait, wait.
Here we are. I'll keep the hat on. I'll keep the hat on.
There's Jill. Did your ugly stepsister leave the stage, or what's
Yeah,
the deal,
she
girl?
had to go freshen up.
Oh, all right. Well, over to you, Jill, to start off our interview this morning, our conversation. We do more of a conversation than an interview, actually, these days.
Yeah.
So over to you, Jill. Take the lead
Oh, thank you.
and
Thank
get
you
Dave
so much.
talking and telling us his story. Can't wait. I
Yeah,
back
I've
and
been
listen.
looking forward to this all week because Dave and I first connected a few years ago because he reached out to me offering support and to me with health and wellness.
Oh,
And
cool.
we had a wonderful telephone conversation. Can you believe it was almost 3 years ago? And I first discovered Dave's work on social media, and he had a book out regarding mobility. And I'm sure he'll touch on that. But so welcome, Dave Morrow, and thank you for accepting our invitation to come on the show. And so, why don't you tell you you've got so much going on? Why don't you tell us what you're doing right now, and then we can backtrack.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. I love what you guys are doing here. Anytime we get more veterans speaking out and getting online is always a net benefit.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, what am I doing now? We got a lot on the go. Uh,
Yes.
but specifically, we just started a 30-day weight loss challenge that we run every year. It's called 30 to Lean. It's in my Veterans Getting Fit AF community where veterans get to hang out and learn about fitness and health and how to redefine what it is to be healthy post service.
Hmm.
Most of us have some sort of injury, whether it's psychological or physical, and I'm no stranger to that. So I share my experiences. I bring on guest experts, and we get to the nitty gritty of what you need to do, and do it in a way so that it's not too daunting. And the majority of us are long gone, or the idea of like having six-pack abs is long gone. So the goal is to just be healthier, ideally for your kids, maybe for your grandkids, and to figure out what it means to actually be healthy. So let's get our weight down, let's get moving again, and let's thrive is essentially what we're doing. So that's one big thing. And another big thing is my second book. So you can see over my shoulder here. Oop, camera's reversed.
Mhm.
That's the initial book you were talking about, The Nimble Warrior. So that one was my first foray into being an author. It was, I guess, my retirement quest to get that done originally. When I got released from the military, didn't know what to do with my life, lost my job, was in a dark place, started writing that book. Really helped. It was a bit of therapy, and I just wrote down what I did in order to recover from my back and knee injuries. And turns out people actually liked it. They're like, hey, this is pretty cool. It's really simple. It's written for an infantry soldier. I'm an infantry guy, so really big letters, pictures, like really like dumb it down, just for guys like myself that anybody can follow from home.
Mhm.
So my second book now is coming out on the 29th of November for Black Friday, and it's called Harden the F Up. And it's a compilation of all the great conversations I had on my Hard to Kill podcast about fitness, health, and mindset. And I summarize it and create a easy to follow challenge at the end. And the goal is to get folks more dialed in with their fitness, health, and mindset by listening
Mhm.
to the amazing guest experts I've been able to talk to over the last 5 years in the podcast. So that'll be coming out on the 29th. Really excited about that.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Now, tell me about your military background, your military experience. When did you join? What regiment were you with? And do you want to fill us in on some of that?
Sure. So I joined at the tender age of 19
Mhm.
and I joined the Canadian Grenadier Guards here in Montreal.
Yes.
So we got to, I mean, excuse me, what attracted me the most was $8,000 and I got to wear this really cool scarlet tunic in
Yes.
Ottawa. And they were like, "Oh, and we get to parade every day." I was like, "Cool, Snoopy, amazing." That's
Were you with ceremonial guard?
yeah, a ceremonial
I
guard.
worked at Changing of the Guard as an admin in the 80s, so
Oh
I
wow.
totally get it. I know the CGG, the Grenadiers and the Foot Guards, and so
Hmm.
I know the experience. So
There you
that's
go.
wonderful. Okay, so you started
So
with CGG.
that's it,
Mhm,
and stayed there for 15 years. So I did a bunch of times, did a bunch of summers in Ottawa,
mhm,
and really enjoyed it. Had a really great reservist career. I did
mhm,
everything I wanted to do. Did the Cambrian Patrol. We had our own little patrol cell, recce cell. It was great. Like I
mhm,
got all kinds of courses and was an instructor. I'm a teacher by trade, so I loved instructing. Would do that every other summer that I wasn't at the ceremonial guard.
right.
And then in 2010, I deployed to Afghanistan as a CIMIC operator. So that was our last combat tour with the Van Dews.
CIMIC operator?
CIMIC operator, yeah, civilian
What's
military cooperation. So we're part of the information operations cell. So
Oh,
CIMIC, PSYOPs, and Intel all kind of work in conjunction.
okay.
And my job was essentially to walk around with a backpack full of money and be the most popular kid in school. So, hey, you need a school built? Cool. I can make that happen. You need a well built? Cool. I can make that happen. You need a bridge built,
Wow.
culvert built? Yeah. So, I mean, the Afghans were like really friendly to me for whatever reason. It was weird. And I never had any issues. Who would have thought? So, the cool thing was I got to deploy with the American battle group. So I was with
Oh,
the 171 Cavalry out of New York State.
wow.
And that was just such a cool experience because I was one of the only Canadians on the really small strong point. And, of course I got, ridiculed for, liking maple syrup and being a hockey lover. But besides that, they really, they're my brothers in arms. And, it was an experience I wasn't expecting. So yeah, my war experience was pretty cool. It just in that regard alone. And after that, I spent a few more years in the CAF, but I got injured when I was over in Afghanistan. So I hurt my back and my knee pretty badly. So it shortened my career. I was hoping to eventually, end up in the Reg Force. I was an officer for a little bit.
Mhm.
And then that kind of all came to an abrupt halt. So that was it. That was 2016 where it all kind of came to an end. And I just fell back on my teaching career from there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, I can relate. I started off in the reserves and I eventually transferred into the regular force after a number of years. So yes, I know that type of route. So congratulations on your career. And yes, being part of like a welfare section, yeah, it's wonderful when you're able to go to another country and you know see the efforts that you're see the results of your efforts, working with support systems over there.
Hmm.
So that's the first I've heard of that, and you're the
Yeah.
first veteran I've spoken to who's been involved with that. So that's
Well, Yeah, the funny thing is, and as you probably know, here in Canada, the jobs we give sometimes reservists and folks in the military without really any training would probably qualify as a special forces role in any other military in the world. But for instance, psyops we give to reservists, just the university students. Yeah, you go walk around the Afghan desert in a team of like 4 or 5, and yeah, just go talk to people.
Wow.
What? Like, what are you talking about? Hey, yeah, Dave. Yeah, you've never had any war experience. Yeah, you're just going to operate by yourself with a foreign country for the next 8 months with a backpack full of money that you're responsible for, by the way. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. It's just the level of responsibility we just like blindly give our members of the forces is really kind of scary, but also really cool at the same time.
Mhm.
And the coolest thing about what I did when I was over there was, like I said, I was a teacher. There was a literal school that was part of our strong point. That's where the initial strong point was. And they built the rest of the reinforcements around it. And so they hadn't opened it yet. And I said, well, okay, this is perfect. I'm a teacher. So I would go do little English lessons with the kids. They teach me some Pashto. I got all kinds of donations from the high school I was working at before to, bringing pens, pencils, all kinds of stuff gets shipped over from Canada. It was such a great experience to see all these kids go to school for the first time. That was the highlight of my tour, like hands down, was just seeing that school open and hear kids laughing and just enjoying themselves like kids do. Right. So that is a pretty cool experience. I'm not going to lie.
Oh my. So while let's stay on Afghanistan for a little bit. Can we touch on your interpreter experience? Because a memory popped up on my Facebook yesterday of a post you made about a year ago,
Mhm.
sharing some really good news.
Yeah. Well, uh, as you may or may not know, in 2021, there was a massive effort to get the interpreters and those that worked with Canada directly during the war out. There was no formal plan from the federal government. And when I talk about no formal plan, I mean, they didn't even know there was a thing to do, let alone start a plan. So a very small group, and by I mean small, I mean, it was one person, it was Wendy Long, had a Facebook page called Canadian Afghan Interpreters. And I'd been trying for a decade to get my interpreter, Abdul, to Canada.
Mhm.
And I was consulting with lawyers. Everyone was trying to take my money. I was trying to consult with immigration experts. They're all trying to take my money. I said, this doesn't make sense. There needs to be a policy. Turns out there was no policy because it was ended years ago. And the goal was to never bring any Afghan back to Canada. And I thought I was losing my mind because I just thought I'm incompetent. I can't figure this out. But in reality, there was no effort to even consider bringing more Afghans to Canada until 2021. And I met Wendy through my interpreter who said, hey, I found this Facebook page. And I just rolled my eyes like, yeah, okay, another Facebook page. All right. But we connected and turns out she was legit. She'd been helping Afghan families for years. Like one here, one there. She was a public servant. She worked for the federal government in the passport department. And so we connected. And then I realized there's something big going on here. And I ended up on a international level Zoom call that I had no business being on because the people that were there were like department minister from the UK, from Holland, from the largest NGOs in the planet. And then who's representing Canada? It was me and Wendy. There was no formal organization around us. It was just
Mhm.
two folks that are volunteers. Everybody else had, like, there was generals on this call. So I call up my friend who is a fellow grenadier and he's a reporter for Global. I said, are you aware that there's a thing going on? He's like, no. And so I took a screenshot and I took of what was going on. And he goes, oh my God, let me get back to you in a second. And then the ball started rolling. So I got on Global News, and then I made a Facebook post about the urgency behind what we need to do here. And then people woke up because it was embarrassing for the government.
Yes.
And then the veteran community started getting involved, and I started getting phone calls left, right, and center. Dave, how can I help? And I'm getting calls from colonels, from generals, I'm like, wait, hold on a sec. This is above my pay grade. I don't know what I'm doing. So it got intense. For months. There was just a flurry of emails, flurry of phone calls. I was hosting, Zoom calls with a laundry list of high profile people in Canada in the military and government while I'm trying to coach my son's soccer team in the West Island here in the suburbs. It was very surreal, not going to lie. And what it eventually led to was the partial evacuation of our interpreters and their families. But I can tell you that there are a lot of interpreters and their families that work for us and bled for us, still stuck in Afghanistan and Pakistan. The silver lining in all this is that the two families that I was directly responsible for, and I take responsibility for them because they work with me, and I felt like they were my family as well. They safely got to Canada. One got to the UK and now has made it subsequently Canada, but thankfully they made it here. But I can't say that for a lot of families, which is sad in a lot of ways, and enraging in most ways, especially for the veteran community, because for those of us that fought over there, these are our allies. These are not just random people in a random country. They were the individuals that, we fought and bled with for a decade, and we hung out with them just like they were our buddies for months and months and months at a time. And to leave them over there was just unacceptable. And just the chaos that ensued was not only depressing, but worrisome on a very high level. And it still kind of haunts me to this day. And it's something that I cover in my new book as well. And there's just still a lot of folks, and especially in the global war on terror community, that are still deeply hurt about what happened there. And so we're just trying to help, one day at a time with the folks that we can, and try to make a bad situation as good as it can be.
Wow.
Good for you for doing that, because yes, they fought along with you. And I know there was just quickly one story with that Mike Root shared. There was an interpreter who lost both legs from a landmine, and he was working both with the American and the Canadians, and he tried to get to Canada. Canada didn't accept him, so he's now in the US, still trying to come to Canada to be closer to his Canadian comrades. So yes, there are many stories out there about like this. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Right.
Well, as a civilian, we wouldn't know anything about that. If it's not on the news,
right,
and even that's inaccurate a lot of the time. As civilians, we wouldn't even have any idea about that, Dave. Thank you for sharing that. Wow, that's disturbing.
It is. Yeah.
Well, the timing of it was atrocious, in terms of, we knew that the Taliban were going to take over. It was inevitable. So the panic button was being hit months before they actually took over on August 15th in 2021. And our team are getting real-time situational awareness on the ground from the folks that we know that are sending us WhatsApp videos and messages, and that our military doesn't have. And just that alone, you knew something was wrong. You knew something had completely broken, and that just completely destroyed my faith in government and in the institutions we have, and just cemented my position that nobody's coming to save us. So therefore, we have to do it. So you have to take the personal responsibility to be healthy, be fit. You have to take the personal responsibility for your community. There's no government that's going to save you. And the fact that they called an election in the middle of the fall of Kabul, like it was at the exact same time, people were screaming, you can't do this now. This is a major international event. You need to postpone and push it, because this has serious geopolitical implications if this fails. And it did fail. And we see now in the news, and that's the thing. I mean, you can be very myopic depending on your worldview and what you've been involved in. But the news stories keep on coming out on how badly managed this was and how much corruption there was. But I think the average Canadian, there's so many other more important things going on in their lives, that this is just an inconsequential news story. But the veteran population being so small here, we can't create enough waves, because our population, in all honesty, of global war on terror veterans is maybe 40,000 in a country of almost 40 million. And in total, the amount of veterans we have is maybe 500,000, maybe 6 at most. So for our voices to carry, it takes a lot of effort for us to actually have any kind of impact. And that's why I have a podcast that tries to bridge the gap between the military, veteran, and civilian worlds as much as possible. And knowing that we can't broadcast news on our social media platforms, a podcast is one of the only places that you're going to get the stories that are behind the story in a lot of cases. And that's why they're so popular these days. And that's why I do what I do.
Mhm.
Right. Now, segue into your podcast. How did you get involved with advocacy? And when did it all start and how?
Well, I don't consider myself an advocate. It's funny that you say advocacy. I just consider myself a curious kitten that wants to know more. And so I bring people on to the show to talk about things that are relevant to our lives. And by our lives, I mean the veteran space, the military space, because we're all human at the end of the day. So it's not like things affect us kind of any differently, but the context is different. So that being said, I got started in podcasting because I was depressed and I was sitting in my basement and I didn't know what else to do. And so I had a business coach that said, hey, just try everything because you're just starting. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody's even going to listen. Maybe your mom is going to listen to your podcast, but that's about it. So he's like, don't worry. Like nobody's in the audience. So just go ahead. So I said, you know what? I've always kind of liked talking to people and learning from them. So I just started, and it slowly turned into advocacy only because I realized there's big gaps in our, you want to call it a healthcare system, but in just the way we treat veterans. The VA or VAC here in Canada, they're technically a support agency, but they're not there to save you. Yeah. And when you realize that, oh man, like there is a huge amount that you're missing if you just focus on what, your doctor and what the, Veterans Affairs is kind of helping you with, that you need to be well aware of a lot of other issues and listen to the experts and don't listen to me. I'm an infantry soldier, I have some opinions, but ultimately listen to the experts that hop on the podcast. And I tackle some political things because of the relevancy to how it affects a lot of us psychologically, and moral injury being one of the major ones. And that's why I covered the Afghan withdrawal and the Afghan issue so heavily on my podcast, is because there wasn't anybody covering it. There was, I was on national news about twice a week during the height of this in both French and English. And that was interesting for me because I'd never done that before. But what I realized is all they want is a soundbite. All they want is a small clip. And they try to corner you into either, committing to an idea that is not quite what you're saying, and straw man you into saying something that is leaning one way or the other. When in reality, I just want to have a long conversation and just kind of explain my point of view. So that's how I frame my podcast. I just want to have a longer conversation with the folks that are making a difference. And I want to be the mouthpiece, if you want to call it that, for folks that are trying to do good within the community. And that's kind of always been my intent. So it's been 5 years now. I've been awarded the best Army veteran podcast in 2022.
Awesome.
So that was fun. Yeah. And as it stands right now, and I'm kind of bitter about this, but I'm ranked number 2 in military podcasts in Canada, behind the Army podcast, which I don't think is fair. They get the full weight of the Canadian Armed Forces behind their podcasts and their views. It's all based on Facebook. It's all based on Facebook and Twitter accounts. So I'm going to say I'm number 1 for the time being, but I want folks that are listening to make that decision on their own. So you should definitely go check it out. We cover, new topics every week. Right now I'm on a big testosterone kind of push to ensure that the guys get their blood work done, because I didn't realize it, but my testosterone's messed up. And a lot of the guys think that they have depression, when in reality, if your testosterone is bottomed out, there's no way that you're going to feel good. You're going to feel like crap, and you might be getting psych meds, when in reality you need testosterone. And that could be the change that we need. So it's just bringing awareness to topics that nobody's going to tell you in the doctor's office. So that's where I hope I have the most impact, is just individuals realizing like, oh wait, I never even thought of that. Cool. No. You know what? I'm just going to ask my doctor. Can I have a blood test? Sure, go ahead. So that's where I'm hoping that the most impact can be felt, and where most folks can get the most value.
And in this whole process, you've connected with many veterans. I know one of our buddies, Dave Bona, is watching. He's
Yes, he is.
yeah. And so you've connected, and I mean, everyone that I connect with, they know who you are. And last night I was having supper with a couple of Army buddies, and I said, "Guess who I'm having on the show tomorrow? Dave Morrow." And my friend Anthony was wearing his T-shirt because he's part of one of the lawsuits. Because
Nice.
there are lawsuits here in Canada, with groups of veterans with different issues. Yes, from drinking water to mandates to sanctuary trauma to yes.
There's almost too many for my podcast to handle. And so the funny thing about getting a little bit of traction is that you start getting messages on Twitter, especially, "Hey, I got this thing." It's like, "Oh man, this is bad." Oh, I'm only one guy with one editor. It's like, okay, all right. Let me get back to you on XYZ issue. It for me. I think it's decades of not having a voice. Whereas if I look to our brothers to the south, the Americans, they like getting to the root of the issues, and they have their First Amendment that they'll die for, and their free speech, like, they will go hard at individuals, hold them responsible, and that's just who they are. So especially in their military, I mean, we see some things being exposed, but ultimately they have so many folks that have served at all levels of government and in industry that they kind of understand what's going on, and they'll listen. But one of the issues I feel we have here is that there's very few people in government that have served. There's very few people in business that have served. So few that we're not recognized as a credible voice. And so if we have a story to tell, I'll give you an example. With the shots that went in our arm, there was ATIP requests that came from the Surgeon General to the Chief of Defense Staff that I got my hands on. Somebody sent them to me. They said, "Hey, you should go over this in the show." So I went over it and I said, "Wow, this is a bombshell." They said, "Don't do this. The forces is fine. This will not improve the health of the forces. They've already got great uptake. Don't do it. It's going to cause legal issues, and it's going to cause civil rights issues or human rights issues." Cool, got it. But they went ahead anyways. And I go, this is an insane document I'm reading. That was 2 years ago. Only now are the news agencies picking this up. And I go, well, that's weird. How is it that me, this tiny podcaster, is able to get this information out there, and then only when there's a more credible news source that actually can talk about it does it actually gain traction? That's where I'm hoping to kind of bridge that gap, where I think there's going to be more folks coming towards the podcast, realizing like, oh, and I'm not the only podcast that's doing great work. You had Mark Meinke on, I think, recently. He's doing excellent work too. There's going to be, and Kelsey Sharon as well. She's doing great work as well. There's more Canadian voices popping up. And similar to the Americans, they're starting to get their voice, and people that are not in the military. And I see it on my live broadcast, which I do on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. Folks are tuning in that I know are not military because they write. They're like, "Oh, hey, I'm not in the military, but this is really interesting stuff." I go, "Cool, yeah, tune in." Americans are tuning in. They're like, "Yeah, hey, this is really cool. Well, it's Canadian perspective. What's going on here?" So I think that petrifies a lot of people that are in power, but I think it also gives a lot of comfort to those folks that have felt like they just had no voice over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Because I think this goes way back, way, 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 way back with just the abuses of power and just the culture within the Canadian Armed Forces. It's because there's been no check on it. There hasn't been podcasters. That news wasn't really taking any interest in it. So I think that's what's going to be the biggest change moving forward, is that there's going to be a lot more accountability, because folks like myself and all the others that I just mentioned are going to get the stories right away, and they're going to say, "Hey, it's not going in the Globe and Mail. It's going on our podcast, and we have a lot more listeners from the CAF than the Globe and Mail does. So don't do this, because it's going to make its way out." So that's what I hope. That's what I hope it serves as moving forward.
Wonderful. Now, you also, not only do you have this podcast and this broad reach, but now you also you do group work now with health and wellness, with veterans getting fit AF. And do you want to touch on that and how that's going? Because I know you have it's a separate platform, Swoop, I think it's called.
School.
This is school.
Oh yeah, big fan.
SKOOL. And it's a different platform, but it's a way for veterans to come together to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a supportive platform similar to Facebook, and you're promoting weight loss, health and wellness, fitness, movement, setting goals, etc. Do you want to touch on that?
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned before, I'm a teacher by trade, and my goal in life was to be a principal and run a school and open a school. And so I was a high school teacher for almost 10 years on and off. And I have my master's degree in education. So if there's anything that I know, it's how to teach. That's the only thing that technically I am qualified to do. Well, that and shoot guns really well, but we're not talking about that anymore. I don't think we're living. I can blow stuff up real good.
Yeah.
But I always want to teach, and that's part of what I like to do, especially on the online side of things and with the podcast. I like to teach lessons because I want people to understand the why of what they're doing. And so Facebook was where I originally started out. And I do have a Facebook group, but the only thing with Facebook is that it's not well suited for teaching. You can't really set up courses. It's a pain to try and connect with people because there's so much going on in Facebook. It's just it's very distracting. And I recognize I don't want to be on Facebook anymore. I don't want to be there. And I think a lot of people are feeling the same way too. It's kind of like, well, we've been on there for 15 years. Where am I going to go? If you want to actually learn and use the platform for a learning environment, this school platform where Veterans Fit AF is out of all the ones that I looked at, this was the one that fulfilled my needs as a teacher the best, because I can craft programs. You can follow them at your own pace. There's a way to monitor if folks are getting stuck anywhere. And I can bring all the knowledge that I've accumulated over the last, decade or so into one neat place where you can access it and it's clean and there's no distractions. So there's nobody sending you ads. It's just that community. That's it. And so in that community, I do my coaching. So we do weekly calls, monthly calls. Right now, like I said earlier, we have a 30-day lean challenge. There's a weight loss challenge. That's the beauty of that platform now. And I want to quote unquote try and democratize it as much as possible, because everybody that I work with in a one-on-one basis pretty much had the exact same issues. So the main ones, especially for the veteran population, is chronic pain. It prevents a lot of movement, right? 65% of us have chronic pain. That's about 10% more than just the average population. And that prevents a lot of things from happening, mainly movement, because you're just in too much pain. Obesity, we're more obese and overweight than the average population. And that's, there's a bunch of comorbidities that go along with that, psychological issues, weight issues, pain issues, they all factor in. And then the other one was just the ego. With the ego for most of us is too big. So, and I'm not saying it from a soapbox. This was me. So I understand it a lot better, because I was that guy that figured, well, yeah, but I can do CrossFit 5 days a week. Doesn't matter that I have 2 kids and a mortgage and, I'm dealing with mental health issues. And no, I can compete like an athlete. So I can go hard every day. Why not? That's how you get lean and fit, right? But at the end of the day, I've got injuries, I've got mental health issues, I've got kids, I've got a whole bunch of other responsibilities. So how do I quell the ego and just be okay with the fact that I can just go for a 30-minute walk? Don't put a rucksack on. Don't put the rucksack on. Leave it at home. Just go outside. Go do a lap. It's okay to not suffer when you exercise. And bringing it down. I've worked with, assaulters, they're retired. So these guys, they go hard, but they're overweight, they're depressed, they want to get back to the gym. I'm like, Yeah, okay, but why? Well, I gotta be in the gym. Why? What's your goal? And ultimately, most want to just be healthier, and that doesn't require a six pack. That doesn't require a CrossFit membership. That requires just consistency and doing the same thing over and over again every year and every day, so that you actually enjoy it and watch what you eat in terms of how much you're putting in your face or how little you're putting in your face, and just adjust it. And once you get that habit down, you're good for life. And that's kind of how I want things to roll. And if you want to take the next step and you have a bigger goal, like, hey, I want to do the Ironman. Okay, that's specific. We got to work on a lot of things there. But if you just want to be generally healthy and be able to hang out with your kids and then be healthy in your 70s and 80s and actually enjoy it, or enjoy your retirement, go for a hike with your wife or your husband, then that's what we're talking about here. That's exactly what we're talking about. And that's what the point of the group is to bring your health in line with what you actually want to do with your life once you're out of the military.
Right. And mobility and movement, just being able to put your shoes on. I'm getting up there and I'm thinking, ooh, I need to do a little bit more stretching, a little bit more movement. That's one thing that I'm really aware of now as I get older. Yeah, movement and mobility, being able to keep your balance, even basic stuff, Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment on that, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave, I'm really excited about that. The fact that, you saw that as a need among veterans for just education and learning around how to be healthy and how to stay healthy outside of the culture of the military. I also was a teacher. That's another thing we have in common, Dave. I taught in the public school system for 15 years. And my goal was to be a principal as well. But we're talking back in the 70s when women weren't principals.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, by the time I get my own school, I'll be 90. So I left after 15 years to do my own thing. So I've been in business for 40 years now. 1984, I retired.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have 40 workshops in wellness called Responsible Wellness. And I hired a professional to help me with that. But here's the kicker. How many people are sitting out there right now who don't even believe yet that they deserve to be well? And that's the work that we do, the why. A lot of people know it's a good thing and you can get lots of great information. But recently, I have the best weight loss program in the world, Dave. I just had surgery. I didn't eat or drink for 10 days. If you want to lose 10 pounds, don't eat or drink anything for 10 days. Back to you guys.
I agree. That's part of my advanced fasting protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Having a reset.
Big time. I do one 72-hour fast once a year to hit the reset button.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll lose 10 pounds. Well, I'm a big guy though, so it's a bit easier for me to go from
Right.
like almost 230 pounds to 220 pounds. But I'm a huge fan of fasting and the benefits. But again, when it comes to being ex-military, a lot of us think that more is always better. So we're going to fast more. No, that's starvation. That's not what we're talking about here. Or,
right.
So and to address your discussion of the why, that is crucial. If you establish your why, you can endure anyhow. And therefore getting to the root of that, for most people, it's uncomfortable.
Well, that's what we do. We get you uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah. Also, another little connect that we have, I'm working on a book. Okay. 2. I have 3 or 4 on the go, but the one that I'm wanting out there, you'll never guess what the title is. I'll send you the cover.
How to harden up.
No. Abuse of power.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. My own personal story of how I was used and abused in the system, the justice system. So my book, Abuse of Power.
Interesting.
Anyway, back to you, Jill. This is great.
Yes.
I'm making lots of connections with Dave.
Absolutely.
Do, right?
So let's talk about this conference you were in Atlanta.
Yes.
Military influencers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about that.
Sure. The Military Influencer Conference is the largest military veterapreneur, if you want to call it, conference in the world.
Veteran.
So it brings in folks from mainly the United States and recently Canada. So my battle buddy and business partner, Mike, had this crazy idea 3 years ago when we launched our app company called
Mhm.
Voluntold to go down to the States and just start shaking hands. We didn't even have a business plan. We're just like, hey, we started a company. Like, yeah, let's do this. High fives, let's go. So we went down to Las Vegas for this conference, just started chatting, and we just realized, oh, there's a whole level to this that we're like, this is incredible. We made such good connections. And one thing just led to another, and we went back the year after. So that was last year, and we brought a handful of Canadians that were interested in coming down. And I just can't say enough good things about this conference because it's for us, by us. And they were so welcoming to Canadians. They go, oh my God, yeah, it's true. Of course, there's a lot of Canadians up there that are in business. Well, why don't you guys come down? We'd love to have you. And so one thing led to another, and eventually they approached us and said, hey, why don't you have like your own area in the conference this year in Atlanta? And you guys can recruit the people to come down, get the sponsors, and let's make this happen so that we can do something similar in Canada and have an international event for the first time. Because this conference has been going on since 2016. It was started by Army veteran Cortez Riggs, and now it's huge. It's like the gem in the veteran and military entrepreneur space, with over 3,000 people attending, and musical performances and comedy shows. Jon Stewart was one of the keynote speakers this year. They go all out, and you can see that they really appreciate their veteran community and their business community.
Mhm.
So to be a part of that was huge, and I have to say it's one of the best professional moments of my life, having been part of this. And we had Dallas Alexander come down, so shout out to him for saying yes to come down to Atlanta on this text message months ago, like, hey dude, you want to come down to Atlanta and play some songs? Like, I guess. So that was great. And then we had 18 Canadians come down and highlight their businesses in a concept we called Canada House, in homage to Canada House in Kandahar.
Yes.
And it was just great to see the interaction between all of our companies and the Americans that were down there asking tons of questions and building those bridges. And then taking the next step and starting the planning process of actually having our own conference next summer in Canada. So we're really excited about that, because my mission is really to help 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds. But there's a caveat to that too, that once you get healthy and once you start to thrive, I believe, because this is what affected me the most, was starting a business, because I struggled to find employment. I had 8 different jobs. I just couldn't make it happen with my injuries and my psychological issues. It was just hard to kind of stay employed, and the questions about why am I taking so much time off, and why are you doing this, and why are you off today? I couldn't deal with it anymore. And having been fired numerous times, I realized like I'm not meant for the job market anymore. But what I can do is create my own world and create my own empire. And I realized that this is where I can thrive. And I think a lot of veterans here in Canada just don't even consider it as a potential option, because we don't have the culture here of entrepreneurship. So what we want to do is start changing that conversation, because we can see the benefits that it has. And not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. We understand that, but we have a young crop of very high speed veterans that have fought the wars for the last 20 years. We're young, we're in our late 30s, 40s, like myself. We still got gas in the tank, and we want to find purpose. And what we often lack here is the ability for the system to give us a new purpose, because we think it's just going to be given to us because we're military. So we go, well, the government will find our new purpose. No, you have to seek it out. You may have joined like me at 19, 18, and had just pre-installed purpose. Once you're out, that kind of fades. And even for those folks that don't want to start a company, when we can start building bigger, better veteran-owned companies, then we can hire more veterans onto those companies, because that's what I do. My team is small, but that's who I have on my staff. I have veterans because I know they're reliable. I know they're going to get things done, and I can have a real conversation with them without them getting all kind of ass hurt, if I can say that on the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
and then we can have a beer at the end of the day. So that's what I like to see, and that's what I like to push a little further down the road. And so I think we've got a lot of momentum moving forward to get this started, and it's going to be really interesting to see where this type of conference and the cultural change it's going to have in Canada, especially in the veteran community. So that's there's more to follow on that. Let's just put it that way.
Do you have a time frame of the Canadian conference in Windsor?
We're looking at this summer.
Okay.
I'd love to be a part of that. We would love to be a part of that.
Yeah, nothing confirmed yet, but absolutely we're looking for this summer.
I can help with that.
Yeah, we're going to have to stay in touch and keep an eye on that.
For sure.
Yes. So you're a busy fella. But wow,
yeah, and I'm doing the finishing touches on our Halloween haunted house outside our place, which is probably occupying way more headspace than I would like. But there's a bunch of things that my son and my daughter are just like, where are the rest of the decorations? Where, oh my God, you guys are right. Yeah, I got to get to the store. Yeah.
How old are they, Dave? How old are they?
They're 8 and 5.
Oh, what a great age.
Yeah. This is their Super Bowl. Like this is, my son said, no, this is bigger than Christmas. I go, it's bigger than Christmas? He's like, oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Way bigger. Wow. Okay. Ironically, he doesn't have a costume that he went out to get because he just focused all his effort on the haunted house and like going to hang out with his buddies. So he had a crisis like 3 days ago. He's like, what's my costume? Well, you said he didn't want one. So we figured it out. So we cobbled one together so he'll be okay. And my daughter's going as Harley Quinn, hence the reason why I'm going to be dressed as Joker. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Well, everybody on my street put out these big, they put up because it's a family area. So they put out all these big things, the big spider webs coming into the door and the lights. And I was pressured into going and getting something to hang on the door, at least.
Yes.
Because we have, last year I had over 100 trick-or-treaters. So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, we got a great neighborhood here too. There's so many kids in our neighborhood, whereas where I grew up, which is only like 10 minutes away, all the kids are my age. They all grew there. They're all gone. So there's no kids. That's my parents' neighborhood. There's no kids there. So they have this massive haunted. There's actually 2 in this neighborhood haunted house that we went to the other day. I was genuinely petrified. I was like, this is Hollywood level fear. Right? Like they had to have spent $40,000. There's no way that wasn't a $40,000. No way. It's insane. It's called Scary Dahlia. They take donations and they give the proceeds to the children's hospital here. Mm-hmm. They do it every year, and every other year that my kids were too scared to go in. This year we went through, and they have insane. So this is a promo for Scary Dahlia. Sure. If you're in Dorval, go see it. And they have people like in the bushes that are dressed as the animatronic ones that they have. So you don't know if there's a human there or if it's like fake. And then they come out and they grab you, and it's just, I had to change my shorts. Insane. So yeah, we go all out here in Dorval. That's good.
Oh, Dorval, is that where you live? Dorval?
Yeah. It's easier for me to say Montreal when I first introduce myself.
Yes,
nobody knows
where
Dorval is, but where the airport is. Yeah.
Right. I know where that is. And my husband was in the military, where he got his aircraft maintenance engineer trade, and he worked in Dorval. Yeah. That was before I knew him back in the day.
Nice.
I know exactly where it is. Yes.
I have to share with you my favorite Halloween experience. I was in the housing in CFB Uplands in Ottawa, and I never had so many kids because it's a military base, family housing, hundreds of children. And I remember this one little man comes up, and his mother says, "Now say trick or treat," and he's holding his bag in front of me, and he's just looking at me. She said, "Say trick or treat," and he shouted, "No!" and he ran away. I said, wait, I didn't give you anything. Oh, I had so much fun at the base at Halloween. Yeah, the military family community came together. It was wonderful. Yes.
And one of my female friends in California, we have quite a few clients. Actually, Jill Ramin arrived last night, my business partner from California. He arrived last night 10:30, I went to the airport to pick him up. But one of our colleagues in California, she gives out pencils and erasers and little rulers, and she gives out school supplies instead of candy. That kind of appealed
Smart.
to me.
Smart.
Oh
You
my.
can get a box of crayons for 80 cents, like, wow, why not?
Right,
Right.
right.
Cool.
And tonight I'm heading to a veteran's home. He's got the huge skeleton on the front of his home. Every year he does he dresses up his yard. So we're gonna have a little bonfire tonight. Hand out
Oh,
some-
nice.
yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good.
Nice. I'm
It's
going to
nice to
have Ramin. I'm going to get Ramin to pass out treats because he left his home in Rancho Santa Margarita, and he said his son is going to be away. He's away. It's just the two of them there. So they left a big pot of treats out in the front door, by the front
Oh,
door.
nice.
I
Yeah.
said, no worries. You can give out my treats. You can run to the door when the rings.
He'll have
So-
to dress up. What are you going to dress up today?
Probably not. I used to all the time, of course, when I taught school. I'm driving around the neighborhood in a clown suit. And everybody's kind of looking at you at the stoplights. But I always
Oh,
dress.
that's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I used to make my own costumes.
So, Dave, do you have any plans for Remembrance Day? Anything like what do you do for Remembrance Day coming up?
So I'm still trying to figure out if my school, where my kids go, is are they haven't confirmed whether or not I just want to come into the class and say hey and just chat a little bit. It's very like, oh, I'll get back to you. It's so that might be one thing that I'm doing. I don't know. It's something I typically do where I would go to schools in the Montreal area, but now that my kids are in school, I just want to go to their school, right? Because I'm literally the only veteran in the entire school. So and I don't think I don't think the school understands that I'm a veteran and what that means, because I've spoken to the principal. I'm like, yeah, they're kind of like, because I'm young, so I think that they think that I'm joking because they haven't got back to me. So, anyways, I'm going to try and clear that up. I'm just going to keep on being persistent. Like, hey, I can come in. I can bring friends too.
Right.
So that might be one thing. But we're going to Ottawa. We typically go to Ottawa, and we're going to be doing a little barbecue. So a small little gathering of some fellow veterans just to hang out and have some beers, have some burgers, and that's about it. So I typically would go to a church parade, but with the kids now, I just keep it simple. We go here. Dorval has a nice little memorial at the bottom of our street, so we go to that. And after that, we typically go and grab a pint. There's a few veterans here in the community, so we go to Kelly's Pub here and have a few pints, and that's about it. But nothing like I used to. We just kind of keep it low key more than anything. So
yeah, the best part for Remembrance Day first, going to a service of some sort. I've been on parade in Ottawa many times because that's where I joined in the reserves. But meeting up with veterans after the fact at a pub or at a mess, we used to go to Cartier Square Drill Hall, and then we'd end up on the Byward Market in a pub somewhere or a strip club. Oops, did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
I was the drag along. And, the memories that I have of Remembrance Day are so many. And the banter and the laughs and the just the community and coming together.
Oh yeah.
Well, how's this for a house rule? My dad, Remembrance Day, we never missed a service. We always went to cenotaph. He died in 2016. He was 93 at the time. And I was talking to my mom the other day, and of course she's preparing, because there was a rule in our house. You were not allowed to even think about Christmas until after Remembrance Day. No Christmas, no nothing till after that was done. So he was always a big, he really ingrained that in us. And I usually have some kind of little special luncheon or something, and with my senior friends, or we do some little thing, right? Just to honor that, because my friends, their dads were World War II veterans and mums as well, right? So we have that in common. And that's an interesting show I did, Dave, one time. I had a panel of 4 or 5 of us in my vintage. I'm 75, so in my age bracket, because we were all daughters of veterans, and how that impacted our childhood.
Mhm.
to have our dads and moms come back, damaged and hurt, no services. They didn't talk about it. They drank too much, or they, you know, so yeah, it was pretty interesting to hear everybody's common threads as a child of a veteran.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like for me, right, it was Grandpa Morrow, so my dad's dad. So I have his shadow box in the basement. That was, I didn't get to really interact with him because he passed away when I was 3 or 4.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Right.
all I had was stories, and he always fascinated me. And it was definitely one of the inspirations for me to join the military, because I was just so fascinated by it all. But there's definitely, they've been able to show that there's generational trauma that gets passed down through
Oh,
your DNA now.
definitely.
It's not just
Definitely.
a nature nurture thing. There's
No. Oh,
literally
no.
a nature thing
Mhm.
involved
Mhm.
with your genes that gets passed down. And like I get like my father and my aunts that they obviously got raised by a war veteran, and my grandmother too, right? She was building bombs in in the UK during many bombing runs. So there's all kinds of the issues that can come up because of that. And I know my grandfather never wanted to talk about it because he lost
Mhm.
almost all of his friends. He fought in the Italian campaign, right? He fought in Sicily.
Mhm.
Oh. Mm.
So, unfortunately, I'll never get a chance to actually chat with him about it, but it would have been fascinating to be able to just to try and pick his brain. And I had a great uncle that served as well. A few great uncles that were just like hilarious. They would chat about it, but it was always just stories about liberating Holland and stuff like that. It wasn't like serious stories, but I got little snippets here and there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But that was it, right? And I can only imagine what they had to go through. But the funny thing is, and I've had this conversation on the podcast before, their rate of quote unquote mental illness was significantly lower, and their
Yes.
suicide rate was significantly lower. Now, part of it is probably they just didn't. Well, they didn't have the diagnoses for a lot of things that we're talking about now, and then on top of that, they wouldn't say anything.
Mhm.
But I think it's curious, like the lack of suicides, I think is a cultural thing. I think it's just because, and this is how I see it for our crop of generation, is that our crop of veterans, is that there's a there's something that deeply affected our soul, because the World War II veterans, they beat the Nazis. Like it's a big deal. Like they
It
were
was a different
it was
kind
an
of war,
evil. It was an evil that had to be
Wiped
you know
out.
eradicated, right?
and everybody, like it wasn't like, oh, there's a war going on. Everybody knew, everybody was involved in the war.
Right.
So when he came home, there wasn't any, oh well, how was that, or like how. Everybody had somebody that knew what the war was like, so there was a
Mhm.
communal understanding of the experience. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard for a lot of us to come home, is that the dirty, ugly, murderous things we had to do for our country are just not recognized, and that destroys you as a human being, because you're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to kill people. We're not supposed to murder people.
Yeah.
It's wrong. You go to prison for it, but our state said it was okay. But then we come home and then we don't get the respect and the head nod, like, hey, thanks
The
for doing our dirty
acknowledgement.
work. And I
Mhm.
think that just wrecks you. And that's not just my philosophy. That goes back to like Nietzsche's philosophy and Carl Jung, and that deep psychological impact that war has on you. If you don't have the moral support, that is like that unwritten contract between you and your government and you and the people that you went to quote unquote fight for, that's going to completely eviscerate your ability to move through life without having some serious issues. And I think that's what we're missing. So I try to broach that subject as much as possible. And that's why like Remembrance Day is such an important day, because
Mhm.
that tries to bring everybody together. Like it's not
Yeah.
just for veterans. It's
No. No.
remember, this was insane. We don't want to do this anymore. But also we don't want to just don't do it on a massive scale. Like we just want to only have like small wars where we're not fighting wars. We're just doing peacekeeping, or we're just doing, missions where it's just a small select group of veterans that do the dirty work and then come home and then we can just forget about it. Like
Mhm.
that's not the country I want to grow up in and have my kids grow up in. I want to make sure that everybody knows there's a heavy toll that needs to be paid. And if we commit to war, there's a serious engagement. That's probably the most serious any country can do, which is send their
Mhm.
sons and daughters off to war. So that's what I'm hoping to do when I go into classrooms, just be like, hey, like this is a real thing that you
Yes.
will likely have to do if we don't smarten up.
Clean things up.
So,
Well, I hate to be the bad person in the room and say our time is up, because we could probably talk for another hour.
Yeah.
But Dave, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today.
absolutely.
And Jill, thank you for all the amazing questions and comments and connects. And we'll look forward perhaps to having you back some other down the road. Like,
Yes.
we all need to collaborate because we're all talking from the same page.
Mhm.
We're just all using different ways to get it out there. So thank you for that.
Right on. Well, thanks for
Thank
having me
you,
on.
Dave.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for all you do, Dave. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.